Combative, smug, and partisan, he sought every opportunity to take cheap shots at his opponents.
I know you want to change the subject.
Significant increases in the effective retirement age.
The easy version on Pierre Poilievre is that he's the Donald Trump of the North.
This isn't a grassroots movement.
We want those great Canadian truckers to know that we are with them all the way.
I'm proud of the truckers and I stand with them.
What page? Can you give me a page? Give me the page. You keep saying that.
Will you dismantle farming?
How is this legal? What if we told you there's an anonymous group pouring big money into attack ads against Pierre Poilievre while claiming to be ordinary concerned Canadians? And what if we told you it's actually being run by political insiders from the Liberals, the NDP, and some of the most powerful unions in the country? Well, this group won't be remaining anonymous any longer because we found out who they are, what they do, and this potentially paves a path directly into the NDP and Liberal Party establishments.
Let's take a look.
Drawn line.
Poilievre would roll over for Trump. He'd sell off our universal public health care so American investors can profit. Remember, Trump endorsed Poilievre. That's Poilievre, but it's just not Canada.
So that's just one of the political ads that has been created by this group. And they came out of nowhere, really. And at first, I think people just thought they were just this
Fringe minority?
Yeah, fringe minority of angry liberals or angry NDP. Like nobody really even knew.
And nobody paid much attention. I know I'd seen these ads way back in the fall and just dismissed them. But we've had many of you contacting us, especially over the last week or so, saying that I'm getting these ads more and more often, and they're showing up when I watch Northern Perspective.
Right. So we decided to take a much closer look at this and really dig deep into it. Now, here's one of the longer ads that they put together, and this is part of a whole series that they've done. As you're watching this, try to recall all of the talking points that the Liberals and the NDP were putting forth in the House of Commons during question period and during their press conferences.
Combative, smug, and partisan, he sought every opportunity to take cheap shots at his opponents.
That guy's never shut his mouth in his life.
You will pay. You're not changing the subject. I know you want to change the subject.
Significant increases in the effective retirement age.
The easy version on Pierre Poilievre is that he's the Donald Trump of the North.
We want those great Canadian truckers to know that we are with them all the way.
I'm proud of the truckers and I stand with them.
What page? Can you give me a page? Give me the page. You keep saying that.
Will you dismantle pharmacare?
Thank you very much.
Will you dismantle pharmacare if you are... Will you not answer more of our questions?
Pierre Poilievre. Who is he? What's he planning for Canada? Poilievre has been in Parliament for 20 years, a career politician who used his position to get rich. That's why he's pushing an agenda to help rich people like himself and hurt everyday Canadians. When it comes to pensions, he's in a class of his own. Literally. Even the comedians got in on the act.
Very few Canadians qualify for a full pension at the age of 31. Well, in fact, there really is only one. And that man, Pierre Poilievre.
Am I paying for that?
Yes, you were. Pierre Poilievre. One hell of a guy. One heck of a pension.
Accountants looked into Poilievre's pension and discovered that it is worth $3.4 million.
Poilievre qualified for his pension after just 6 years as an MP, paid for by taxpayers.
All MPs qualify for a full pension after 6 years.
After just 6 years.
I don't want to say all of them. All of them after they enacted that law that makes MPs qualify for a pension after 6 years. But don't forget, the MPs also pay a very significant portion of their salaries into their pension plan. Yes, it is subsidized by the government, which means it is subsidized by the taxpayer. But it's not like these guys are getting a total free ride. They are paying into it.
Right. Now, listen to the rest of this and how they're framing it and all of the misleading that's going on.
So, what are his policies on pensions for Canadians, the people who will pay for his gold-plated retirement?
Significant increases in the effective retirement age are required to increase to 67.
Poilievre voted to increase the retirement age to 67 for Canadians, while he can collect a taxpayer-funded pension at 55.
Poilievre voted against raising Canada pension plan benefits. CPP payments average only $815. Poilievre's personal pension will pay more than 20 times the average CPP benefit, over $16,000 every month.
Poilievre fights against better pensions for Canadians, but he's certainly getting his.
That's why I welcome every single time they talk about my experience in government is doing the exact same things that I would like to do in the future.
Poilievre voted against raising the minimum wage. Then he voted to give government the power to eliminate sick leave for workers.
In 2024, Poilievre voted against raising the taxes for the richest 0.3%.
Oh, you mean the capital gains tax? Oh, right. Yeah, the capital gains tax.
Right, because it wasn't just 0.3% of Canada's wealthiest. It was everybody. If you had a second property, like maybe a cottage that you wanted to sell, or maybe you inherited a property after the death of somebody you love, then, well, guess who's going to be paying capital gains tax on that?
But notice this seems to be a real blend of the Liberal arguments and the NDP arguments, because the NDP were always going after Pierre for cutting the pensions, allegedly, and raising the pension age. They don't manage to talk about the fact that you either raise the age that you can actually work, or you double the amount of payments that everyone has to make in order to actually be able to retire.
Right. They were concerned about the CPP and or the OAS essentially going bankrupt because Canadians are living longer than we ever have. Back when CPP and OAS were created, the average life expectancy for a Canadian was approximately 72, and you were charted at age 65. So you had, about 7 years that you were living on your benefits after you had stopped working. Now the average life expectancy for Canadians is 84, and it's been going up year over year. So Canadians are living off of those benefits for a lot longer, and they're paying into them the same amount because the retirement age is the same. So that was the problem that the increase in retirement age was supposed to solve. What they did instead was the Liberals canceled that and decided to raise your CPP payments instead.
So the Canada Pension Plan was running out of money. That's the problem. So you either have to have people work longer, or you raise the amount that they pay. And the Conservatives are like, well, people don't typically like paying more, so we'll just extend the age to retirement. Both are bad options, but
it's got to be one or the other.
He voted against closing tax loopholes for the wealthy. Poilievre's so committed to helping the rich, he even voted against luxury tax on yachts. What about housing?
Last time Poilievre and the Conservative Party was in power, 800,000 affordable homes were lost.
For part of that time, he was the minister in charge of housing. Now he is planning to abolish housing programs that will build hundreds of thousands of homes across Canada.
I think it's just partisan policy and partisan politics, and it's municipalities that are going to pay the price for it.
Wonder why Poilievre doesn't understand the housing challenges people around the world are facing? Parliamentary records show that he and his family are residential landlords.
Pierre and his family live in Stornoway, which is the home that is provided to the official leader of the opposition, and it is a taxpayer-funded home, just as we pay for the Prime Minister to live in, well, his various residences. The leader of the opposition also receives a home that he lives in. So,
well, they go after him in this ad for that too. So,
well, but like, what are you going to do with an empty house?
Well, but here's the other thing.
It makes sense to rent it out, does it not?
Well, it does, but you know, the other actual fact is that they do own another house that is rented out, but so do many other MPs.
Yeah.
So does Jagmeet's wife.
Right.
So, but it's amazing because they go from NDP talking points to Liberal talking points to NDP talking points to Liberal talking points.
Well, and again, many of the things that are said in this video are things that we have debunked previously in our previous videos. It's not that they're not true, it's that you're only receiving one part of the story.
And they're misrepresenting the entire story.
That is correct.
They go on to say that Pierre Poilievre lives in a government mansion with a private chef and a groundskeeper, all paid for by your taxpayer.
So does the Prime Minister.
Well, it's just how it is.
So does the Governor General.
And this is the way that's been for about 100 years. So, you know, that's not the issue to be going after. But, you know, they're saying, well, he voted against all these things. He voted against all these things because that's literally the job of the opposition, to oppose.
And sometimes, and we've been over this as well in our previous videos, but sometimes the opposition, the official opposition or the opposition parties as a whole will vote against certain bills because of the way they're worded and because they can't reach an agreement with the government putting forward the bill to word it in a particular way. So then the bill is voted down. It's not always that the premise of the bill is bad. Sometimes it's a clause that they have in there that's no good or that it's worded in a particular manner, and that's why they're opposing it.
Now, we're not going to spend any more time going over this ad or any of the other ads because there's literally too many. They have run over 600 ads in the last 6 months or so. So this is basically just a taste. If you've never seen these before, this is how they go. So we said, all right, who the heck are these people? What is this website that's behind this? So we started at the beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Protecting Canada. That's who is behind all of this. And they have, ironically, one mission and one mission only, considering they have a generic name like Protecting Canada. They don't seem to be worried about protecting them against Liberals. They don't seem to be worried about protecting them against Mark Carney. They don't seem to be worried about protecting them against Jagmeet Singh and the NDP. They are only interested in, quote unquote, protecting Canada from Pierre Poilievre, because this is literally the front of their website. So we thought, I wonder if this is an organization. They probably are an organization if they are A, paying for ads, and B, if they're collecting money for ads, which they claim to do so on their website. So after some digging, we found that there is indeed a corporation name on the Ontario Business Registry called Protecting Canada. It was incorporated just this last fall, which is very interesting because that's when all these ads started. And you'll notice that it is a not-for-profit corporation. How nice. How nice. And where's their head office? Ontario, Canada.
Ottawa, Ontario, Canada.
Now, sometimes there's public information like who owns the company, who's behind it, but that was not available. So we could have just ended the search right there, but well,
you know us.
That wouldn't be us, would it? So we ended up finding that there is a legitimate way to access this information, but we had to jump through a few hurdles to do that, but we did.
And we had to pay a whole $10 to do it.
A whole $10. So, yeah. Wasn't that difficult, but you had to know where to go. So this is what comes up. You getting access to a company profile report. Thank you very much, Government of Ontario and the Ministry of Public and Business Service Delivery. So we now know that their registered head office address is 116 Albert Street, Unit 300, Ottawa, Ontario, K1P5G3. Now, after looking into that, that didn't really lead anywhere. because there are many different companies that share that address. So what does that mean? This is a virtual office. It exists only for the sole purpose of providing an address for having your business registered. Nobody's there. So what else comes with this report? Well, this is where it gets interesting, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, the anonymity is now gone. I present to you the directors of Protecting Canada, Barbara Byers, David Hare, Brian LeBlanc, and Ian Wayne. Their official positions within Protecting Canada. Barbara Byers is the vice chair, David Hare is the chair, Ian Wayne is the secretary, as well as treasurer of Protecting Canada. Now, these positions don't really mean much. You have to identify them when you're actually registering the business.
Yeah, I think you're the president and I'm the secretary, I think, for Northern Perspective.
And I think you're the treasurer too.
I think I'm the treasurer too.
So, okay, fine. Now we know who they are, but who are they really? So this is Barbara Byers. She's the vice chair of Protecting Canada. And before that, well, she was the executive vice president with the Canadian Labour Congress, one of the biggest and most politically active and powerful labor organizations in Canada.
David Hare, a senior NDP staffer who held several key operational roles, including Director of Operations and Director of Information Systems and Data Management for the NDP Research Bureau. He's currently principal at Alopex Insights, deeply involved in NDP strategy.
Brian LeBlanc. He's a former staffer for the Ontario Liberal Party under Kathleen Wynne, with experience in communications and strategy. He also worked on Sheila Kopp's 2004 federal Liberal leadership campaign. He knows how campaigns work and how to move public opinion.
And Ian Wayne, former senior communications advisor for the NDP, having worked closely with leaders Jack Layton and Tom Mulcair. He is now with Monk & Associates, a firm specializing in political strategy with deep ties to progressive movements.
So, folks, this isn't just a group of concerned Canadians. This isn't a grassroots movement. This is literally political insiders, and I would hazard to even guess political elite operations people that know how government works, know how parties work, and especially know how communications work. And you're telling me that they just came together out of goodwill? Really?
You know, this is kind of insulting because you and I did start Northern Perspective as a grassroots political, I don't even want to call it a movement, but a political YouTube channel. You had a housewife and the director of an IT department who saw what was going on in this country and went, you know what, we're not standing up, like we're not putting up with this anymore. And that's how Northern Perspective was born. That's grassroots, not a bunch of people who have worked on political campaigns, worked with political candidates, and are very involved politically.
Now, the interesting thing is some people may be asking, well, how do you know these are the same people that are, on the business registry? Well, for people that are this ingrained in politics, 3 of them didn't seem to really worry about hiding it very much, because you will notice under David LeBlanc, under Ian Wayne, and under David Hare's X profiles, they are openly retweeting all of these ads that Protecting Canada is actually producing. Now, maybe they're just thinking, well, we might as well get our money's worth for what we're actually spending, but this is the thing. If you're trying to remain anonymous, you may want to take some steps to ensure that you remain anonymous, because these breadcrumbs are pretty blatant, folks, that we were able to actually find.
Well, and contrast that to Northern Perspective again, where we were anonymous for nearly the first 18 months that we ran this channel. And one of the things that we did to ensure our anonymity was we made sure that we never, on our personal profiles, watched Northern Perspective, shared Northern Perspective, spoke about Northern Perspective. We made sure that the Northern Perspective account was 100% separate from any of our personal accounts.
Right. So these guys, pretty much shattered that rule. So we mentioned Ian Wayne. Now, this is a very important aspect of this. Ian Wayne works for a company called Monk & Associates. Now, for probably almost everybody watching this show, you may just think, okay, so what? Who cares? It's a company called Monk & Associates. We don't care. Well, for those that don't know, you should care. And you should care in a big way. Because Monk & Associates is one of the most significant NDP political strategy firms in the country. And you will no doubt recognize one of the people from Monk & Associates. Her name is Kathleen Monk. She's one of the founders of that company. And here's the thing. She doesn't just take part in this company. She advocates for it, and she advocates for the NDP. How does she do that? Well, she is a regular guest on CTV News and other news stations. So this is a lady that they call on to ask her opinion when commenting on Pierre Poilievre, which she is regularly critical about, of the Liberals and the NDP in terms of what their political takes are. So you have Ian Wayne who works at this strategy firm. You then have to ask the question, okay, so if political strategy and PR is what this firm does, then how is that being used to influence protecting Canada? Or is it? Either directly or indirectly, it seems like Mr. Wayne is using some of that to help bolster any ads or commentary that Protecting Canada has on Pierre Poilievre. Now, we don't know if Monk & Associates is directly involved in that, but are you telling me that Ian Wayne, who works there and is exposed to all this intelligence, isn't bringing that back to Protecting Canada? Listen to all the talking points in their ads. It is like verbatim what you hear from the NDP. Let's get real here, folks. Now, what's next? Well, Barbara Byers, she was the executive vice president for the Canadian Labour Council. Now, this essentially is an organization that represents unions like Unifor, like QP, the big boys around the country. Now, Unifor and these other organizations we've all seen in the past, they've actually helped fund campaigns like this before. Now, they've come out and said, well, we're not associated with this. Okay. The problem is we have no way to prove that they're not. And they don't have to disclose anything. Neither does Protecting Canada. So the issue here is that on their website, Protecting Canada specifically states that they have organizations large and small donating to them. Well, considering that you have one of the directors of the company, the vice chair, with ties to all of the major unions in Canada, and they are using all of the NDP talking points, the NDP has historically been tied to all these unions, seems a little interesting if they wouldn't be involved in that.
Well, and I think the thing that is most interesting to me is that if you have a political party, like let's say the Conservatives, and they want to run an attack ad on an opponent, you can see through Elections Canada's website exactly who has donated to their cause to fund those attack ads. Not necessarily that specific attack ad, but you know who's donating to the Conservative Party. You know it's not going to be a corporation because corporations are not permitted to donate to political parties in Canada. And you know it has to be a Canadian citizen. And you can see all of their names on the Elections Canada website. So you know exactly where those donations are coming from. In this case with Protecting Canada, They try to maintain their anonymity of their board members, which we were able to discern. They also are trying to maintain the anonymity of their donors, and they're creating these attack ads for Canadians to see. We have no idea who's behind them or who's paying for them. Is that right?
Well, and we never will. And here's the other thing, folks, just to be clear. When you donate to any political party, you have a maximum of $1,750, that's what it is this year, that you can donate to the party at large or to each candidate. That's the limit. What's the limit if you wanted to donate to an organization like Protecting Canada? There isn't one. So you could have a company coming in and donating $100,000. Bang!
$1 million, $5 million. We have no idea.
Now, the only challenge is that those companies are not going to be getting a tax receipt because the organization itself is not classified as a registered charity. That's the only way you'd be able to get a tax receipt. Why wouldn't they classify themselves as a registered charity? Because they wouldn't be able to act politically as they're doing. And there would be CRA oversight if they were. So just registering themselves as a nonprofit, that avoids all of that. And you may be wondering, well, there's an election coming up. So what's the deal with that?
So I contacted Elections Canada about this because my question was, how is this legal? How can you have a third party doing attack ads against a political person or political party, and it's just allowed to happen? Like, to me, it was wild that you can have a third party getting involved in attack ads like this. And to summarize, what I was told is that pretty much anybody can run any ad that they want whenever they want, except for the 90 days prior to a scheduled election, or once the writ drops in the case of a snap election, as well as you can't do it if the writ drops for a scheduled election. So that's it. And it's not that you can't do it. You can still be partisan and run these types of ads during those periods. You just have to report everything to Elections Canada, including your donations and where your money's coming from, how much you're spending, et cetera, et cetera. So this is perfectly legal, folks.
Now, the United States, they have a lot of regulatory legislation in place to monitor this type of thing. Even Australia, they have some regulation on this. Canada, we have very, very little, if any. So that's why this is legal. So, but we'll get back to that. Now, we wanted to know, if possible, how much money was actually coming through this organization. So we continued to dig. And we were able to actually find some information on Facebook. So this is a screenshot from Facebook of Protecting Canada's ad campaign. And here's a whole bunch of ads that are actually active now. So you can see that they're all videos and that you can see they're all recent. Okay, fine. But this is how much they've actually spent in just 90 days. So you'll see, third from the bottom is Protecting Canada at $313,000, folks. Over the last 90 days, they've spent more than Mark Carney has on his Liberal leadership campaign ads at $290,000. They're not too far behind the friggin' Liberal Party of Canada at $359,000. And who are they targeting? They're targeting women, folks. Why would they be targeting women? There's a good reason for that. Women are the ones that are in the demographic that are most likely to vote for Liberals.
Or NDP. But women are less likely than men to be voting Conservative.
So almost 80% of their ads are targeted at women.
And these are just the Facebook ads. They were also running ads on YouTube, or so has been reported to us. And we don't know how much they spent there. Like, we only know the Facebook.
So you have them running ads on YouTube. You have them running ads on Facebook. Multiple platforms, no doubt, as well. And big money, like $313,000 just on Facebook.
And no doubt just in Canada.
So there's a lot of money going through this organization, folks. This is not like if Northern Perspective wanted to run an ad. Like, not at all. Now, this is a screenshot of their very first ads that they put up. This goes back to early October of 2024. And so this is where things kind of line up, because they started the company early September. They registered their ad account late September. Their website goes up. Ads start rolling out the door in October. That's pretty darn fast for a grassroots organization of concerned Canadians to just decide to start an organization, get a whole bunch of donor money, and then start rolling ads out the door. This didn't just, happen from an organic spread of their message.
Well, and we don't know who those donors are. Are they large corporations? Are they unions? Are they individual Canadians? We have no idea. Now,
many of you may be saying, well, surely the NDP and the Liberal parties are donating to this. No. And there's a reason why we can say that. That would be tracked, because the parties actually have to report where their money goes. Now, this doesn't stop the Liberal and the NDP party from saying to their buddies, hey, you can save your donation to us, but there's this other organization that's doing some good work that you may want to wink, wink, nudge, nudge, send some money to. And by the way, you don't have to stop at $1,750 with us. So that's a possibility as well.
We don't know that's happening. But I mean, anything's possible because we don't know who these donors are.
Well, and again, there's a lot of collaboration in the talking points here between the Liberals and the NDP that is going into the messaging of this. Like it's interwoven almost every other line. They bounce back and forth between those talking points. Pharmacare is in there, dental plans in there. Like, it's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. Now, we also found that Protecting Canada is actually using a media agency officially to produce their work. So, being the upstanding people that we try to be, we decided to contact this organization to let them know, hey, we're on to you, and this is your opportunity to answer some questions prior to us putting out this video. This is the email that we sent them.
We titled the email, Request for Comment, Story on Protecting Canada. Good afternoon. We are preparing a segment for release this evening regarding Protecting Canada and its connections to the Ontario Liberal Party, the NDP, Monk and Associates, and the Canadian Labour Congress via its directors. We are offering your organization an opportunity to respond to the following questions. 1. Misrepresentation. Protecting Canada publicly presents itself as a group of, quote, concerned Canadians, end quote. In light of its leadership, comprising of senior political operatives and insiders from the Liberal and NDP establishments, how do you respond to concerns that this may mislead Canadians about the true nature and intentions of the organization? 2. Use of nonprofit status. How do you respond to concerns that Protecting Canada's classification as a nonprofit organization is being used primarily to collect donations with the intent of influencing public opinion against Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party of Canada? Number 3, involvement of professional political firms. One of Protecting Canada's directors, Ian Wayne, works for Monk and Associates, a well-known political strategy firm with close ties to the NDP. How do you respond to concerns that Protecting Canada may be directly or indirectly benefiting from a coordinated effort by professional political organizations and party insiders to facilitate this attack campaign, an effort some observers might interpret as a form of domestic interference within our political system, particularly given the complete lack of transparency regarding your funding sources? Number 4, your role with Protecting Canada. Lastly, can you clarify your relationship with Protecting Canada? Are you officially part of the organization, as their website implies, or have you been contracted by them specifically to produce articles and media related to their anti-conservative agenda? We are committed to including any response you provide in our coverage. Please submit your comments by 5 p.m. Eastern today.
You may or may not be surprised that we did not receive a response to this email. But this is why we are concerned about this, because if this was a foreign nation paying money through a third-party organization to run attack ads on any of the parties, that would be regarded as foreign interference, or at the bare minimum, foreign influence with regards to our elections.
Well, and I suppose the concern here is that because the Protecting Canada organization is not making its donors known, we don't know if that's happening or not.
Now, we decided to be a little introspective on this and said, okay, so what's the difference between this organization and us? Because people would argue, well, you produce videos that are critical of the NDP, you produce videos that are critical of the Liberals. Well, there's one really important difference, is that we are not paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, for advertisements with the goal of influencing millions of Canadians across this country.
Right. If you want to see Northern Perspective videos, you come to us. We don't put it in front of your eyeballs on YouTube, Facebook, etc. You have to be subscribed, or YouTube does recommend videos and Facebook does recommend profiles to viewers who aren't currently subscribed, but we're not paying to be in front of your face.
So there's a lot of questions that need to be asked here, folks. How involved, if they are the NDP and the Liberal Party with this organization? How involved are these political strategy firms that are cozy to the NDP and the Liberals with this organization, if at all? But there's some serious questions and some serious concerns that the relationships of the directors in this firm have with the big unions, with the NDP, with the Liberals, with these political strategy firms.
And another question that perhaps we can ask our new MPs when we get them after the election is, how are third parties like this able to do political attack ads and not have to report who their donors are or what kind of money they're spending to an overseeing body like Elections Canada?
And the last question, and we all know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway, is why is the mainstream media not digging in to issues like this? Why are they not asking the question, why is this mysterious third-party organization all of a sudden completely attacking Pierre Poilievre? Where's their money coming from? Who's behind it? Oh, wait, they don't care because it aligns with who is paying their bills, which is the Liberal Party of Canada, which is obviously who they have been talking about over the last 3 months. And by everything that they're doing, it looks like that is their preference for winning the next election.